Broadcast of the American Woodshop, FESTOOL.
Funding for the American Woodshop provided by Delta Woodworking Machinery, a full line of precision shop tools available at woodworking dealers, hardware stores, and home centers. Delta, building on tradition. And by
Porter Cable, professional power tools made in America and available through woodworking dealers, hardware stores, and home centers.
Hello, I'm Scott Phillips, and welcome to the American Woodshop. Today we're lucky to be with two of the world's greatest scroll sawers, Scott Kokendorfer.
How are you, Scott?
Very good. And Roy Kay.
Hi, Scott.
They're going to show us how to get the most out of one of the most versatile tools in the shop, the scroll saw. Look at this. This is amazing. These are three-dimensional patterns all done on the scroll saw. You just need one tool. And all this is made out of 1/8-inch thick Baltic birch.
Correct.
And the other thing that's fascinating to me, you look at the details on these pieces, and all the lines are scroll saw cuts.
That's correct. We're just putting a scroll saw blade where it's never been before, and the challenge is fairly easy there. And we're coming up with an artistic view also.
Well, it's neat that you've designed clocks around the themes, and these Christmas tree ornaments are fantastic. You know, guys, I've been scroll sawing for years, but I think this is the most fun that I've ever had.
We rate them from 1 to 10 difficulty levels. This would be one of the easier ones, up to one of the ones that you did here. The train ride that you did here be the more difficult one.
Roy, there are no piercing cuts in this. This is all made with one continuous cut, right?
That's correct. We found out by eliminating the piercing cuts, we were able to move that blade around and create different line effects in there.
To give it dimension.
To give us dimension and detail lines in there to put action in the scenes.
Guys, this is one of my favorite patterns that you've come up with. Who is this?
Oh, that's Huck Finn and Friends.
Kind of makes you wish you were there.
Sure does. This is beautiful work. Well, we'll make that one together. But before we get started, there are a couple things you need to think about with the scroll saw. This scroll saw has two speed settings, a slow and a high. And just keep it on the slow for all those fine cuts, and the blade won't break. The other thing that you should know is this blade is this one right here. It's called the double lot blade, and it has 28 teeth per inch. Now, to cut out the backing plaque that's 3/4 of an inch thick and made out of redwood, we're going to use this 07 blade that has 11.5 teeth per inch. So those are the only blades we'll need to make this project together. The other thing that's very important is that the blade needs to be properly tensioned. There, it's untensioned. And how did you describe the best way to tension this, Roy?
Okay, we want to get a really firmness in the blade here, so we keep on adjusting our fine tension here till we feel that our blade is really tightened up. And we could come up with a high pinging sound here, as you can hear.
Right.
And it's really basically firm in here. The other way, if we just back this guy off a little bit,
right,
tighten it up, it's very loose in here.
Okay.
So we'll just bring it to the right attention, and there we go.
Okay, so you want just a little bit of flex in it, but really it should have that sound to it right there.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, so we have the right blade. We're going to use a slow speed setting, and of course use a guard to hold the workpiece down to the tabletop gently. But the other thing that I've done is I've made this support table out of 3/8-inch thick cast acrylic sheet. And this is for extra support around the blade. See how this opening is very small? That will help to support the workpiece as it's being cut out and give us the ability to get that nice fine detail. And to fasten it, you just cut a wood notch like that with a 1-inch screw, and you screw it right to the bottom of the plate on 3 places. Okay, well, Huck's been waiting on us, so what do we need to do here?
Okay, this is the start of the pattern here, and what we do, it's very hard for somebody to control a workpiece this big, so What we first want to do is cut out Huck Finn here, and we're going to use a spray glue here. It's a temporary bonded spray glue. We just want to apply a fine mist to the back of the pattern. Smooth it out. All the bonding adheres. Okay, and we're ready to go. Okay, we're going to start at a line here, and we're going to go into an internal veining. We want to remember here that basically your right hand, if your right hand is acting as a guide to guide the wood, and your left hand, the very pads of your fingers, is acting as pivoters to help you pivot the wood through. So here we come up against the line, we slowly turning it. You feed at your rate what you feel comfortable with. You slowly just follow the line. You come up to a sharp point. What you're trying to do now with your right hand is turn the piece of wood, and with your left hand, you're pivoting the wood on it.
With that small 2-aught blade, you can do that in these patterns.
Turn right on that point.
Real tight radius, right?
If it was a wider blade, you wouldn't be able to follow that kind of a turn.
No, I leave a big spin hole in the workpiece.
Right.
On these type of patterns, what's really nice is that if we come off the line a little bit, I don't think anybody's going to notice at this point.
Right.
Okay, now we're backing out. We're putting light pressure on the back of the blade. We're still applying the same process with our hands. In other words, we're just putting light pressure on there until we come to our origin point where we began. Okay. From this point, we will continue on in a clockwise cutting path, following the lines. Anytime we come into an intersection, we will completely go into it until that line path is completely cut all the way.
Also, something here you might want to notice is Roy's arms, his elbows are down at his side. They're not, they're relaxed. They're not raised up. It's very difficult to control the workpiece when your arms get away from you.
And you get tense. And
Exactly.
You just stay calm.
That's a very good point. We have a hard time controlling the wood piece coming up here. Here again, we want to be totally relaxed.
Relax and have fun.
Right.
That's probably one of the most important points we can explain to you.
You mentioned earlier, too, that the reason you go in a clockwise fashion is that's the way the blades have been stamped, machine stamped, and they have a tendency to drift a little bit.
That's correct.
So if you go clockwise, you'll get better cutting results.
You're going in your waist area in most patterns when you're cutting in a clockwise direction.
Okay. You know, a good magnifying light really makes a world of difference. It's a good tool to have to help you follow those lines. I can't believe how thin that detail is on the fishing pole. And that's solid, isn't it?
That's the magic of the Baltic birch.
Have to use it. If you use solid wood, it would split up.
Right. We find it's the best working composition around.
Very durable. Well, now we need to clear off our workspace and cut out all the rest of the parts of the pattern. All the plywood pieces are cut out for this project now, but we'll need a backing, and we're using redwood for that, aren't we?
Right, 3/4 inch redwood. And as you can see, with our patterns also comes a plaque pattern. You apply that the same way you do the pattern onto the Baltic birch. You just spray glue it right on.
And the other thing, we've taken the zero clearance table off to be able to tilt the table here on the scroll saw to 30 degrees to create the bevel effect. And we've changed the blade. This is a number 7 blade. That's thicker, and it will handle the thicker wood better.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Also, you want to, at this time, if you're working with a 2-speed scroll saw, put the scroll saw on high speed. What I'm doing is using the type of crafter's glue we use, and we just put a couple of drops all along the edge here. You don't need to get every tiny crevice full of glue here. Or you want to? Sure.
Lay that out.
This is all straightforward.
Right. And you just build it up in layers.
Exactly.
Correct.
Okay. That's the water.
This is your pier. Your
There's
side pier.
right. You've got a post there going in.
It's nice about this glue and the types of glues you want to be using. It's that it dries clear in case you do get some onto the plaque. These two spacers will be glued together to add the depth we're trying to accomplish in the scene right here. Just kind of sandwich them together.
The other good thing about this glue, it does set fairly quickly, but it still gives you enough time that you can go in and make adjustments.
Exactly to reposition there, in this case you have a little move to make. And now for the last, let's put it in place here.
Okay. Boy, isn't that something? That's fine work, and a lot of people would never believe that it's as easy as it really is.
Yeah, it really is that easy.
And they just need to give their hand, start simple, and it would just come together beautifully for them.
Right.
Scott?
Thanks for having us, Scott.
You're welcome. Roy?
Thank you, Scott.
And thank you for adding a whole new dimension to scroll saw work. Now, let's head to one other place to get a few other ideas about scroll sawing. This beautiful village is called Fish Creek, Wisconsin, and it's in Door County. This is a peninsula that's nestled between Green Bay on the west and Lake Michigan on the east. The village is composed of many architectural styles, beautiful homes, inns, and shops that you can visit. It's also a place to enjoy a simpler time of life. It's the home of the Spielman Workshop. Let's head on out that way to see a few more secrets about scroll sawing. Once again, we've returned to a very special place, the Spielman Workshop.
Welcome, Scott.
Well, thank you, sir. Mr. Pat, and of course, a very famous helper, Mrs. Pat.
Hi, Scott.
Hello, nice to be here.
Nice to have you.
You know, you've just developed a few new ideas here,
Right.
and you call this segmentation.
Segmentation. Right.
Okay, and in one of your books, it has a couple of these patterns called Christmas Scroll Saw Patterns. Very good book. But can you walk us through these processes here?
Okay. Scott, segmentation is purely just taking a pattern and the definition or the line detail. Every piece is sawn out rather than, being applied by paint or wood burning or something of that sort, which is difficult to do.
Right.
As you can see, there's different ways that you can finish this. But I think the important thing to realize is that the segmentation is cut from one piece of wood. This all started out as one piece of wood, then it's cut into pieces, and the surfaces or the corners rounded over to give it some depth and definition.
Pat, I know that you're an artist, and you apply your hand at painting some of these things. And I take it this is acrylic paint?
Yes, that's right.
Okay, and once this dries for 24 hours, if you want to, you could put a urethane finish on it. But I like the look just the way it is, certainly. Beautiful work. And the other thing, even though you're an artist, you don't have to be to paint these, right?
That's right.
Because the pieces are, cut out to their own shape. You just paint the piece, and then you let the curve create the definition.
Right. And we just use number 2 pine, and we try to pick out something that's fairly clear, and you kind of sneak around the knots.
Right.
And that keeps the cost down.
Okay.
And when you buy this lower grade material, it's probably going to have some distortion. As you can see, it's cupped here. And just put the crown up, apply your pattern with the spray adhesive and stick it down,
Right.
and you're ready to start sawing.
Okay, and then what you end up with are all the pieces.
All the pieces, right.
Okay, of course, these will be rounded over later on.
Right.
And you'll show us those secrets. Well, show us some scroll saw tips.
Okay. One of the things that's new, I think, and people might be interested in, this is a new blade. Most of the blades sold today are made by kind of a metal stamping process, and this blade, all the teeth are ground instead of being stamped out. And it cuts extremely smooth, and there's very little feathering. The work piece, the resulting piece is very smooth. There's no sanding that's required along this edge. And notice that there's no feathering on the bottom. And it's just a remarkable cut. Beautiful. And particularly in softwood like pine. Pine does not cut easily. Softwoods normally don't cut as easily as or as smoothly as hardwoods do.
Right.
Another thing, this blade has reverse teeth in the bottom, so that as the blade is going up and down, there's a few teeth in the bottom that are pointing in an upward direction, so it's cutting on an upward action,
exactly,
right, as well as a downward faction.
Smoother cut.
Okay. So the saw's all set to go. All we have to do is turn it on. We're ready to go. Cut in.
So that's your first cut, and you just work your way around.
Continue cutting. The radius here, I might cheat a little bit. Rather than make a real sharp corner, I'll just round that off just a touch. And I'll radius it like this.
Okay.
Okay?
Perfect. Well, let's cut out all the parts, and then we can go to the rounding process.
If you go off the line, you don't want to come back too fast. You really want to have smooth flowing curves if you can. But if you get away from the line, the tendency is to come back to it as quickly as possible, but you really don't want to do that. I'm not going to cut way into here either. I'm just going to hold back a little bit so I have room for routing. As you notice, it's not really important to follow the line dead perfectly. It's more important probably to get a smooth curve than it is to follow the line.
All right, you have all the pieces cut out now.
Right.
Okay, and you laid a pattern down to just help you reassemble all the pieces the right way, and of course you peel off the paper.
Comes off very easy, right?
Okay.
Sure.
Now the next step is to round it over.
Right.
And you have each piece has to be rounded over for depth. And you have several techniques. What's your favorite one?
Well, I like to use a router. I use the trim router. Because it's small and it's easy to handle.
Right.
And I've made this special little base that you can see. The bit comes through and there's zero clearance around it, so that you can really route the very smallest of pieces, and your work is supported.
Okay.
As you can see.
Right.
Sometimes you're going to run into the short grain like this, which is rather brittle. You want to make sure that your bit is very sharp. In fact, I take new bits and sharpen them myself with a diamond hone to make sure they get real sharp. But if you're concerned about this short grain breaking off here, then you can round those kinds of pieces by hand.
Right.
But to save time, I actually route most of it with a router.
Okay. Well,
most of them with a router.
let me plug you in and. Okay. Now. This is a handy thing. Right. Always have to think about safety.
Right. You need ear protection and eye protection, and this is all in one unit. Works very nice. You're all set. This is a friction mat, and as you can see, this works real nice. And you just go along. We'll just go along like this. We turn it on. You want to make sure it doesn't tip, and if you push down hard on it, probably harder than normal. The pressure should be more downward. More pressure downward than horizontal. But if you're going to round over by hand, you might want to pencil gauge a few lines on and just pick a certain distance and go all the way around it, and then come around like this so that you have some idea as to where you want to round to, and then you just round over between the two lines. And I use a drum sander. You could use a disc sander. And this is what I use here. Set it down, set up like this, and you work underneath it. Then after you have it kind of roughed out, as you see it's kind of rough, then just take some sandpaper, about 100 grit or 120 grit, and then you'll have to work that out and give that a nice smooth contour. And this is a fluttering tool. It's layers of sandpaper. The only problem is with the flutter wheel, it should run at a somewhat slower speed. If it runs wide open, as we do with the drum sander, the surface is just too hard. That's wide open, and that makes it too hard a surface out. So we want to slow that down. And to hold it, just take a piece of tape, and I'll slow the speed down about where I want it. Tape that down like that. Now I can use the flutter wheel to sand the outside surface.
Pat, here are all the pieces, and you're the artist. And you're going to stain this, natural stains, I take it.
That's right.
Okay. And you're just using your artistic license here, right?
Right.
Okay. So varying the light and dark colors, it will be a natural blend and spacing it out. So I'm going to let you get at that.
Okay.
And here we have a project that's already assembled. And you'll understand, Pat, these are already dry.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
And now to assemble the entire piece, could you walk us through that?
It's a little bit tricky because the pieces could shift around on it. So what I've done here, I've taken the pattern, laid it down, taken some thin plastic and taped it down. Now I can glue pieces together on top of the plastic without gluing the pattern. And this is not a real permanent joint that we're trying to get here. It's or a real sturdy joint. We're just trying to hold the pieces temporarily so we can get a backing on it. Because as you'll see, some of the other pieces have a backing on it. So we'll just put this, we line everything up here as it should be. And we'll piece it together, one piece at a time. Just give a little bit of hand pressure. And that's all that we have to do. You can use a little stick for this if you don't have a palette knife. But just put a little bit of glue on. Stick the pieces together, and it takes maybe 15 minutes for it to be in a state where you can actually lift it up. And then we'll cut a backing for it, and you just go along and do this all the way through until you have an assembly that you can lift up. And we'll just stick this, go right in there,
Right.
like that. Okay, and as you can see, it's not a very pretty job in the back, and a lot of these joints are not, real strong as they are in themselves, so we need a backing. And we can just put this down onto a piece of thin plywood, and then you simply take a pencil and draw around the outside, and then saw that out on the scroll saw, which I've done here. But I saw a little bit smaller than the layout line, so when this is on, you don't see the plywood from the edge. As you can see that this will lay over, and we have a little bit of reveal here that's shorted around so that it won't be seen from the outside edge. Then all we do is to take this. There's one that's glued on. I'll show you how we glue this. We'll just be fairly generous with the glue.
And this is yellow wood glue.
Yeah, any kind of wood glue will work. This is not like I say, a real strong joint, but it doesn't have to be because there's no real pressure on it.
Right.
But we want glue, especially in this area here, we want glue to go across everything where there's short green areas. And I like to use my fingers with glue. I think I just don't feel like I'm into woodworking unless I get my fingers into glue.
Right, and that's a good way to get a good, strong bond on the back of this.
Right.
How much time from start to finish on a project like this are people looking at?
I think probably, not counting the time it takes for the stain to dry or the glue to set, probably an hour, hour and a half.
Oh, boy.
That's not bad. I will just set that on here. Press it down a little bit.
Then I notice on the back you put a
hanger,
frame
right,
hanger here. Well, that's ready for the wall. Beautiful, beautiful work. Pat, how's it going over here?
It's coming along pretty good.
All right. Oh, that's going to be beautiful. And you use your artistic license and just vary it a little bit to give you a nice color scheme. You know, I have to thank you both, because over the years, I've enjoyed a lot of the projects that you've come up with, and you come up with unusual angles, unique things. And you're the designer. You draw up a lot of these patterns, and then you perfect the woodworking techniques.
Right.
What a team. I can't thank you both enough.
Come again.
Most
We enjoyed it.
definitely. And thank you, Pat. Well, there you have it. Thanks for joining us, and hope to see you next time in the American Woodshop.
Funding for the American Woodshop provided by Delta Woodworking Machinery, a full line of precision shop tools available at woodworking dealers, hardware stores, and home centers. Delta, building on tradition. And by
Porter Cable, professional power tools made in America and available through woodworking dealers, hardware stores, and home centers.